Your Ford's engine is silently dying right now, and you're the one killing it. Every single day, you're behind the wheel making decisions that seem completely harmless, maybe even responsible, but they're actually shaving years off your engine's life. I'm talking about habits so common that nearly every Ford owner does them without thinking twice. And here's the scary part. By the time you notice something's wrong, the damage is already done, and you're looking at repair bills that'll make your eyes water. Today, I'm going to expose 7 driving habits that are systematically destroying your Ford engine. These aren't the obvious ones, like ignoring oil changes or redlining every stoplight. These are the sneaky ones, the habits that fly completely under the radar while they're slowly cooking your engine from the inside out. Stick around until the end, because habit number 7 is something almost everyone does in the winter, and it's probably the most devastating one on this entire list. Let's get into it. Habit number 1, the cold start sprint. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning. You're running 5 minutes late for work. You jump into your Ford, fire up that engine, and immediately throw it in reverse to get out of the driveway. The engine's been sitting all night in the cold, and within 10 seconds of starting, you're already asking it to move a 3,000-pound vehicle. Sound familiar? This is one of the most common and most destructive habits out there, and here's why it's absolutely wrecking your engine. When your Ford sits overnight, all the oil drains down into the oil pan at the bottom of the engine. When you first start it up, it takes time for that oil to circulate back up through all the engine components. We're talking about critical parts like your camshafts, valve train, piston rings, and cylinder walls. For those first crucial seconds, these metal components are running with minimal lubrication, grinding against each other with nothing but a thin residual film of oil between them. Now, Ford engines are built tough. They can handle a few seconds of this. But when you immediately start driving, especially in cold weather, you're forcing that engine to work hard before it's ready. The tolerances in a cold engine are tighter because metal contracts in the cold. You're forcing thick, cold oil through narrow passages while asking the engine to generate power. It's like asking someone to run a marathon the second they wake up, except this marathon is happening with their muscles still half frozen. The damage accumulates microscopically every single time you do this. Those cylinder walls, they're getting scored. Those piston rings, they're wearing down faster than they should. Over months and years, this habit leads to reduced compression, increased oil consumption, and eventually, that dreaded knock. That means your engine is on borrowed time. Modern Ford engines with EcoBoost technology are especially vulnerable because those turbochargers need adequate oil flow to stay healthy, and cold starts under load are absolutely brutal on turbo bearings. Habit number 2, the perpetual short trip shuffle. You drive your Ford to the grocery store 3 miles away. Later, you run to the post office, another 2 miles. Then you pick up your kid from school, 4 miles round trip. You're barely putting any miles on the engine, so that's good for longevity, right? Dead wrong. This habit is actually one of the worst things you can do to your Ford's engine. Here's what's really happening under the hood. Every time your engine starts, it goes through a warm-up cycle where the fuel mixture runs richer, meaning there's more gasoline in the mix. This is necessary to get a cold engine running smoothly, but it has a side effect. That extra fuel washes down the cylinder walls, stripping away the protective oil film. Some of that fuel also sneaks past the piston rings and drips down into your oil pan, diluting your engine oil with gasoline. Now, if you drive long enough, your engine reaches full operating temperature, usually around 15 to 20 minutes of driving. When this happens, the engine gets hot enough to burn off that excess fuel, and your oil can do its job properly. But when you only drive for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, your engine never gets hot enough to cook off that fuel contamination. You're left with oil that's progressively getting thinner and less effective at protecting your engine. But wait, it gets worse. Short trips also mean your engine never gets hot enough to evaporate the moisture that naturally builds up in your crankcase. Every time combustion happens, a tiny bit of water vapor forms. In a fully warmed engine, this moisture evaporates and exits through the PCV system. In an engine that never fully warms up, that moisture stays in your oil, creating a nasty sludge that clogs oil passages and accelerates wear. If you've ever seen that tan mayonnaise-looking gunk under an oil cap, that's what I'm talking about. That's the calling card of an engine that lives on short trips. Your Ford's computer also stays in a learning mode during warm-up, constantly adjusting fuel trim and timing. When you never let it complete that cycle, you're preventing the engine management system from optimizing its performance, which leads to reduced fuel economy and increased deposits on intake valves and fuel injectors. For Ford engines with direct injection, this is especially problematic because those intake valves don't get the cleaning benefit of fuel spray, and carbon buildup accelerates dramatically. If you made it this far, then consider liking this video, giving it a thumbs up, and subscribing to my channel. This helps me bring you more honest car advice. Habit number 3. The cruise control flat footer. You love cruise control. Highway driving, you set it at 70 and forget about it. Sounds like the relaxed, engine-friendly way to drive, doesn't it? But there's a hidden problem with cruise control that most Ford owners never consider, and it's causing serious long-term damage. When you use cruise control on varying terrain, especially hills, the system does something your foot would never do. It maintains that set speed no matter what, which means when you start going uphill, the computer floors the throttle to maintain 70 miles per hour. You're cruising along, listening to music, completely unaware that under the hood, your engine is being pushed into high-load conditions over and over again. Here's where the damage happens. Modern Ford engines, especially the EcoBoost line, use forced induction. When you're going uphill at highway speeds and the cruise control demands more power, that turbocharger spools up hard. The engine is already at relatively high RPM because you're at highway speed, and now it's under heavy load. This creates extreme heat and pressure inside the combustion chambers. Your engine oil is working overtime trying to cool and lubricate everything, but if you're doing this repeatedly on long highway trips, you're heat cycling your engine components in ways that accelerate fatigue and wear. The real killer is that you're often doing this when the engine is already hot from sustained highway driving. Add in the increased load from climbing hills, and you're creating temperature spikes that stress head gaskets, cause oil to break down faster, and can even lead to pre-ignition or detonation in severe cases. Your knock sensors are constantly working to retard timing and prevent engine damage, but there's only so much they can do. What you should be doing instead is staying engaged with your driving. When you see a hill coming, give it a little throttle before the grade to build some momentum. Let your speed drop a few miles per hour on the climb rather than making your engine work twice as hard to maintain an arbitrary number. Your engine will thank you with a longer, healthier life, and you'll actually get better fuel economy too. Habit number 4. The overzealous engine brake. You're a responsible driver. When you see traffic slowing ahead, or you're coming down a mountain pass, you downshift or use your transmission's manual mode to let the engine slow the vehicle. You're saving your brakes, and that's smart, right? Well, yes and no. The problem is that most Ford owners take this way too far, and they're causing damage they don't even realize. When you engine brake, you're using the engine's compression and internal friction to slow the vehicle. Here's what's actually happening. You close the throttle while the transmission keeps the engine spinning at high RPM. With the throttle closed, almost no fuel is being injected, which means almost no combustion is happening. This creates a unique stress situation where the engine is being forced to rotate by the wheels, but it's not generating power. During normal driving, combustion pressure pushes down on the pistons, which spreads the load across the bearings. But when you're engine braking, especially aggressively, you're creating a vacuum in the cylinders. The pistons are being pulled up by the crankshaft against that vacuum, which reverses the normal load direction on your rod bearings and main bearings. This isn't what they're designed for, and doing it repeatedly, especially at high RPM, causes abnormal wear patterns. For Ford trucks with the 10-speed transmission, there's another issue. These transmissions are incredibly smart and have their own engine braking logic built in. When you manually override that by forcing aggressive downshifts, you're sometimes working against what the transmission computer knows is best for longevity. You can actually create clutch pack wear in the transmission itself because you're asking it to make rapid ratio changes under load. The worst offenders are the drivers who downshift multiple gears at once. You're on the highway in 10th gear doing 70, traffic slows, and you manually command a downshift to 7th gear. The engine RPM jumps from 2,000 to 4,000 in an instant, and all that momentum has to be absorbed somewhere. It's being absorbed by your transmission clutches, your engine mounts, and the stress on your drivetrain components. Habit number 5. The stop-and-go idle monster. You're sitting in your Ford in the drive-through line, engine running, air conditioning on, scrolling through your phone, or maybe you're waiting to pick someone up, so you leave the car running to keep it cool. It's just idling, barely using any gas. No harm done, right? This casual idling habit is actually one of the most insidious engine killers out there. When your Ford engine idles, it's running at its least efficient state. The combustion temperatures are lower than optimal. The oil isn't being pushed through the system with much pressure, and the fuel mixture has to be richer to keep the engine running smoothly. All of this creates the perfect storm for carbon deposits, oil contamination, and incomplete combustion. Let's talk about what's happening in those cylinders. At idle, the flame front during combustion moves slower and less completely than it does under load. This means you're getting incomplete combustion, which leaves carbon deposits on your piston tops, valve faces, and cylinder heads. Over hundreds of hours of idling, these deposits build up, creating hot spots that can cause pre-ignition and reducing the effective compression ratio of your engine. For Ford's direct injection engines, this is especially problematic. Those intake valves aren't being washed by fuel spray like in older port injection engines. So the only thing cleaning them is the airflow and occasional oil vapor from the PCV system. When you idle for long periods, you're giving carbon every opportunity to bake onto those valve backs. Eventually, this reduces airflow into the cylinders, hurts performance, and can cause misfires. There's also the oil issue. When your engine idles, the oil pump is spinning slower, which means lower oil pressure throughout the system. While this is generally okay for short periods, extended idling means your engine components are running with less lubrication cushion than they would at higher RPM. The oil also stays cooler, which means it's not hot enough to evaporate moisture and fuel contamination effectively. Modern Ford engines have auto start-stop systems for a reason. Those systems know that shutting off the engine for even 30 seconds saves fuel and reduces wear compared to idling. If your Ford has this feature and you've disabled it because you find it annoying, you're actually working against engineering that's designed to extend your engine's life. Habit number 6. The ignore the maintenance light gambler. Your Ford's instrument cluster lights up with a message, "Oil change required," or "Service engine soon." You know you should deal with it, but the engine sounds fine, runs fine, so you figure you've got some time. Maybe you've pushed it another week, another 1,000 miles, another month. This procrastination is gambling with your engine's life, and the house always wins. Modern Ford engines have incredibly sophisticated monitoring systems. When that oil life monitor says you need an oil change, it's not making a wild guess. It's been tracking your driving patterns, counting cold starts, monitoring operating temperatures, measuring engine load, and calculating the actual degradation of your oil's protective properties. When it says you're at 0% oil life remaining, it means the oil has lost its ability to protect your engine effectively. Here's what happens when you push past that warning. Your oil has additives that prevent it from breaking down under heat and pressure. These additives get used up over time. Once they're depleted, the base oil starts oxidizing rapidly, turning acidic, and forming sludge. This sludge doesn't just sit harmlessly in your oil pan. It circulates through your engine, clogging the tiny oil passages that feed your variable valve timing system, your turbocharger bearings, and your piston oil squirters. Ford's EcoBoost engines are particularly vulnerable because they operate under higher stress than naturally aspirated engines. That turbocharger is spinning at over 100,000 RPM. And it depends on a pressurized flow of clean oil to keep those bearings alive. When you run degraded oil past its service life, you're essentially running your turbo on abrasive slurry. The bearings score, develop play, and eventually fail catastrophically, sending metal shavings throughout your entire oil system. But it's not just about the oil. When you ignore maintenance warnings, you're also likely ignoring other service intervals. Air filters get clogged, reducing airflow and causing your engine to run rich. Spark plugs wear out, causing misfires that can damage catalytic converters. Coolant degrades, losing its ability to prevent corrosion and protect against freezing. Each ignored maintenance item creates a cascade effect that accelerates the next component's failure. Habit number 7. The cold weather warm-up warrior. It's winter, the temperature's below freezing, and you're a responsible Ford owner. You start your truck or car and let it idle in the driveway for 10, 15, even 20 minutes to warm up before you drive. You can see your breath inside the cabin, so obviously the engine needs time to warm up too, right? This is the habit that almost everyone thinks is helping their engine, but it's actually one of the most destructive things you can do, especially in modern Fords. Here's the brutal truth about extended cold weather idling. When your Ford engine idles in freezing temperatures, it warms up incredibly slowly. The engine is producing minimal heat because it's barely working, and that heat is being radiated away by the freezing metal block and heads almost as fast as it's being generated. Meanwhile, the engine is running rich because the computer knows the engine is cold, so it's dumping extra fuel into the cylinders. That fuel is washing down your cylinder walls, contaminating your oil, and creating carbon deposits. But here's the worst part. Your transmission, differential, wheel bearings, and suspension components are all still ice cold. When you finally put the truck in gear and start driving after that long idle session, you've got a warm engine connected to a completely cold drivetrain. The thermal expansion mismatch creates stress on seals and gaskets. Your transmission fluid is still thick and sluggish, making your transmission work harder than it should. Modern Ford engines are designed to warm up under light load. The fastest, most efficient way to warm up your engine is to let it idle for just 30 seconds to a minute to get oil circulating. Then drive gently. Keep the RPMs low, avoid heavy acceleration, and within just a few minutes of light driving, your engine will reach operating temperature. The movement generates heat much faster than idling ever could, and you're warming up all your drivetrain components evenly at the same time. The extended idle warm-up also wastes an enormous amount of fuel and creates unnecessary emissions. Your catalytic converter needs to reach a specific temperature to work efficiently, and it heats up much faster when you're driving than when you're idling. Every minute you spend idling in the cold is a minute your catalytic converter is dumping unprocessed pollutants into the air while eating away at your fuel economy. The bottom line. There you have it, 7 driving habits that are systematically destroying your Ford engine while you think you're doing everything right. The cold start sprint, the short trip shuffle, the cruise control trap, aggressive engine braking, excessive idling, ignoring maintenance warnings, and the cold weather warm-up myth. Each one of these habits seems innocent, maybe even responsible, but they're all working together to reduce your engine's lifespan and set you up for expensive repairs down the road. The good news is that now you know. You can change these habits starting today. Let your engine warm up for 30 seconds before driving. Take it on longer drives occasionally to get everything up to temperature. Stay engaged when using cruise control. Brake with your brakes instead of your engine. Shut it off instead of idling. Respect those maintenance warnings and stop the extended warm-up routine. Your Ford engine is an incredibly sophisticated piece of engineering that can easily last 200,000 miles or more if you treat it right. But it's counting on you to break these destructive habits before they break it. Make these changes and you'll save yourself thousands in repairs while keeping your Ford running strong for years to come.